Hi, so welcome to this NYC RISE user orientation video. What we're going to be covering today is the basics of the NYC RISE data system. We're going to talk a little bit about the sequence of work that you do to enter the data. We're going to talk about user accounts, login information, or how you log in, the login screen, and then the various sections that are in the website. There's a link here to the orientation materials. We're also going to include a link to that at the in the about section below in the YouTube video. And there's also a short video on how to make a shortcut to a Google folder because you want to keep that whole folder somewhere that you can get back to it very easily. This data system has been created with funding from City Council, New York City Council, to track data for the Adult Literacy Forward program. In this particular orientation, I'm not going to talk very much about the Adult Literacy Forward program, but just to let you know, there is a Q&A here as well as other materials that you've probably become available to you. You can find them actually on the resource screen in our data system as well. So NYC RISE stands for New York City Results and Impact of Student Education. We very rarely remember that that's what it stands for, so we just call it NYC RISE. And again, it's the data system for the Adult Literacy Forward Adult Education Program, all of which is funded by City Council. In that folder of orientation materials, we have a folder of intake forms that are totally optional. I'm going to go over those with you. There's a user manual that will have a date on it that'll have the most up-to-date version. Again, this is really the one that we want you to make sure you have access to the live document and not a downloaded version or a copy, which may get stale as updates are made to this manual. We also have the multi-user request sheet, which is a spreadsheet where the program managers from your program can request user accounts or to change user accounts. And there's the slides that we're looking at right now are in that folder. And then there's also a frequently asked questions section in that folder. As I mentioned, we have created some intake forms. These are completely 100% optional. No one's going to come and expect to see them in your folders. You don't need to mail them to anyone. We created them to help you know what data exactly the system requires. The NYC RISE agency information form is a form that we imagine a program manager or a person who is making the plan for your Adult Literacy Forward program, that they would fill that out. It has some information about the agency, but it also has a lot of information specifically about what you're planning to do with this funding. Then there's the new services form, again, completely optional. This is, again, something we imagine that a person who plans everything would fill out and give it to the data entry person, so the data entry person has all that data to put into the system. We did include a student intake form. It's a very, very light intake form. If you're already using the DYCD intake form or the ISRF for state or federal funding, you probably don't need another intake form. But in this case, this will at least let you know what information is required to create a student record in the system, and the terminology that is used in our system that might be a little different than some of the other intake forms. And then we have a new service enrollment and exit form. And again, the understanding would be that whoever is maybe doing assessment or deciding which services, which students will be enrolling in, they can fill out this document and send that to the data entry person, and that way the data entry person will have all that information. 100% not required, worth looking at. Just so you know what data is being collected, but you can choose which ones are helpful to you. The user manual, as I mentioned, will have the most up-to-date date on it, and it really does take you through step-by-step every section of the data system. So if you have questions, go there first. It has a nice outline down the side. If you're familiar with Google Docs, you can open that up so you can just move around inside the document that way. To create user accounts, we ask that program managers make the request and that the request is made using this spreadsheet. Again, it's a Google spreadsheet. So you go to this link, you'll be asked to create a copy of the template. It will direct you to do that. That will be your own document. No one else will see it. You fill it out, and then you need to send it to me, either as a link that I can open. My work email is a Google email, so you can invite me that way. Or you can download it and send it to me as an Excel spreadsheet. Don't send it to me as a PDF. That's not helpful, but Excel spreadsheet is just fine. We do ask that you put your name in the file name somewhere, so you can keep the file name that comes with it, but just add your organization name somewhere in the end there so that it's easier when I see them to sort through them, as I'll get many of these. The spreadsheet is going to ask for users' first name and last name, their email address, which we do really use. So that needs to be accurate and something that the user checks regularly. It's not going to be used in general, but it's used definitely as part of this process of onboarding on the system. A mobile phone number, which could be used for the multi-factor authentication code that will be sent when you log in the system. You can also choose to have that come through email. And that's what this section is about, whether the preference that the person has for either getting their multi-factor authentication through email or SMS text message, and then the level of access. And the level of access options are either full access, which means you can read and edit and delete, or read only, which literally means you can only look at the things that are here. You can't add more information or take any information away. So far, the grand majority of users have had full access, and we expected that to be the case, but you know internally if you have some system that would like to have those two different levels. To set the pass, so what happens once the user account is requested and we go in and create it, an email is going to be sent to each user. So you should warn the users that this is going to happen because sometimes that email goes to their junk. The email will be coming from noreply@nyc-rise.org, and it will ask them to set up their password. They will have 48 hours from when that email arrives to use the link that is in the email to create their password. Then the link becomes stale, and they'll have to set the system again, and they can do that very easily. There's a link even in the email that they receive. Excuse me. So they can restart the process any time by either going to the link here, the link in the email, or going to nycrise.org and going to the forgot your password link. That will also reset the system to start the process again. And again, they'll have 48 hours. This is what the email looks like that they'll receive. You can see it has a link that will take them to creating their password. It also has their username, and we really ask you to remind them to look at that and note what their username is, because we've had some people assume it's their email address, and it is not. It will never be an email address. If when they click this link, they might get an error message that the link has expired, they can click on this link here, or they, like I said, they can go to the forgot your password link on the website, and all of that will just start the process again. So they'll get another email asking them to set up their password, and they'll have 48 hours to do that with the new link, and on and on. Talked about sequence of data entry. This is really just a helpful tip. It's most important at the beginning of every year because there's certain information that you need. First of all, you're going to set up your user accounts, and then the users have to create their passwords so they can log in. Once that's done, that's done. Maybe you don't have to do that every year. You're going to have to enter your organization information and maybe update that every year. And often that's done at the beginning of the year because it's where you put in your funding sources and personnel and all that information. And you want to put all that in because before you do other things, because if you don't complete the organization information, when you get to services or students or enrolling students, you won't be able to complete these tasks because if personnel is missing or a funding source is missing, you won't be able to apply these here. So this is why we suggest doing it in this order. Again, as the year goes on, steps 3, 4, probably you do mostly at the beginning of the year, and then steps 5, 6, 7, 8 are kind of the repetition every month. So it's really just in the beginning of the year that this is kind of a major deal. So I've had people email me and say, no, I can't find the personnel I want to assign to this service. And I'll be like, well, did you put it in your organization information? So you just need to go back and check. If you're not seeing something in one of these areas, it's probably because it didn't get entered in the organization information screen. The data deadline is the 15th of the following month. So if you have had services occurring in September, the expectation is that all that data will be in the system by the 15th of October. We have said the 21st. Some of you may have heard the 21st, and it's been changed to the 15th. We think that mostly this will be done on a quarterly basis, but we highly recommend that you just maintain a monthly data entry system so that you don't end up with a whole bunch of data to enter to hit that quarterly deadline. So you just want to maintain a system where data is getting entered consistently and not all at one time to some deadline. Some login tips. We had some people, as I mentioned, try to use their email address as their username, and they got locked out. So just know you will get locked out if you have 5 failed attempts to log in. So stop at 4. You're only locked out for 30 minutes, but it can be really frustrating, and there's no reason to keep doing the same thing if it's not working. You can always contact me if you're having a problem with any of that. Again, we suggest that everyone, just remember that what your username is, if that's part of the issue. Often that's the issue, not the password. And again, if you miss that 48-hour window to create your new password, you can always go to the Forgot Your Password link on the website itself or to links that we've shared in a variety of places. Okay, so this is what NYC RISE looks like. I'm going to now switch us over to the actual database. So it is a website. You get there by going to nyc-rise.org, and anyone can get to this screen. So on the screen, we have resources. Some of these are still being updated, so they're not completely correct right now, but you'll see here information both about the AL Forward and about NYC RISE, like all the resources we were talking about earlier for the orientation will be here. News items, this is where we post things like our orientation dates, and most of the stuff that you will also have received. Our goal is that everything that's here you will have received as an email as well, but it's someplace you can come back to refer back to these things. And then we have the login screen. So once you have your login credentials, you will put in your username. I'm going to put mine in. You can see I'm using Chrome and it's remembered my username. What we expect is that you will not save your password. So for security reasons, you don't want to have a password saved for a database, because if someone just walks by your desk when you're not there and they can come into the database, they see everything that's in the database, all the student information, and we don't want to make that something that's possible. So do not, it would ask you to save, if you want to save the password, you say never for database passwords. So I'm going to put my password in. Once I do that, I'm going to get this request for a one-time passcode verification. This is what we talked about as the multi-factor authentication. In my case, it's going to come to my email, so I can see here, it will tell me if it's a text message or an email. I'm going to go to my email. You're not going to see that, but I'm going to grab the code from there. I can copy it and come back here and paste it. If I was a data entry person, I would certainly click on this box and have it remember my machine for 7 days. Because I tend to be demonstrating this, I don't check that box so that I can show this screen whenever I need to. And I'm going to click on the verify the one-time passcode. So the same resources and news that we saw on the homepage are visible here. The main way that you move around inside this database is using these section tabs on the side, on the left side. You can make that smaller if it's taking up space for you. And you also notice as you make your screen smaller, it will shrink. And then you'll get that little hamburger symbol up there. But you can always just pull it open again. So our sections are our home screen, which is where you arrive once you log in. And if you find that whatever you selected, whether it was SMS, text messaging, or email, is not the way you want to receive your one-time passcode, you can come up here, you'll see your name, and in here you'll have a very short profile. In the profile, as you scroll down, there's a setting for your multi-factor authentication. So you could switch it to SMS or email, but make sure that this is the correct phone number if you're switching that way. So you can do that after you've logged, once you can log in, you can come in and change things like that. So we're going to go back to the home screen. Resources and news are here. And then the next section tab we have is organization. And you'll see organization is one that has several tabs going across the top as well. So we have two different kinds of navigation. We have this navigation on the left side, and we have on some of these sections, you're going to see that you have tabs along the top. So again, as I said earlier with the sequencing, you want to come in here and fill all of this stuff out before you tackle any of these other areas, because some of this data is required before you can actually create a service. So we have our organization information. You have your address here. The required fields have a little asterisk beside them. In the location information, there is city council district is a required field that you need to fill in or select from a dropdown. The rest of these are all optional. We recognize that some programs, most programs, serve more than one city council district. So this is really related to your address. Every student is going to have a city council district related to their address. And so the city council will still be able to track who's being served where. So don't worry if this feels like you're being limited. This is really just the address of your main, the city council district that your main base is at. If you have several sites, you can always add additional sites, and each of them can have their own city council district. And again, this is very typical of the way that you move throughout NYC RISE. You have here a list of the sites you've already added. You can edit them and you can delete them by using these little icons on the right side. If you want to add a new one, you click on Add New. And you'll see with any of these areas where you have a pop-up screen like this, the save is going to be grayed out until you've filled in all the required fields. So you would fill in all your required fields, and you can see again the asterisk lets you know what those are. And once again, the city council district is a required field, and the rest are optional. And then once you have filled all those out, the save button will become dark green, and you can save it. You can have as many sites as you want. Then under investments, so this again, we see the list of all the existing investments. I can edit those and delete those from right here. If I'm adding a new one, I click on the Add New Investment. I have to select from a drop-down. These are all the investment categories. Again, this is part of the plan that you already created. You've identified which of these you're using. So this is why it's important for the person planning to share this information with the data entry person. So if you pick support services, you're going to put in a title for what you're doing with support services. You're going to put a short description. Fiscal year is already filled in, the amount allocated. Sometimes some of these fields that are required are kind of not logical based on the service that you're offering or the investment or whatever. You'll see you can always write NA if it doesn't make sense there. Regarding the investment amount, it doesn't have to be exactly precise. No one's going to be adding all of your investment amounts together, but you kind of had an idea of how much you were going from the funding that you were received from City Council, how much you were going to spend towards this service, this investment area. Again, it might be an investment area that doesn't directly serve individual students. Maybe it's something that impacts your whole building. So you can, put a 0 there or an explanation down here in the expected impact, but you do need to put something in all of these different areas. We have then outcomes, and again, the outcomes are related to your investments on some level, on your services on some level. And I found that it is helpful to write them in the past tense, because just when you apply it later on to someone, it just flows a little bit better if you have it past tense. So, Nell Eckersley learned how to use the internet to search for jobs. So again, I can see all the ones that exist. I can come in here and add a new one. I'm selecting from a category that already exists. This is not something that you created. It's a list of all the different possible areas. And then you would write a short description here. And then this will become dark green, and you can go ahead and save it. Funding sources. This system was designed particularly to work for Adult Literacy Forward, so we expect to see that funding source in here. We did make it possible for you to add other funding sources. We know some programs don't have other databases, and maybe you want to use this as the place where you manage a lot of your data. This does not replace databases that are required by your funder. So if you are using, if you have DYCD funding and you have to enter data into their database, or you have state ed funding and have to enter data into ASSIST, you still have to do that. So we're not asking you to do it here necessarily. This is really the one thing we need to see here is your Adult Literacy Forward. It's possible that you will have students who are served under the Adult Literacy Forward funding that are generally more, funded in classes funded under WIOA or AIL or something like that. Then those folks should be included in here, but they're receiving a service that still comes under the Adult Literacy Forward. So you could still just have this funding source if that's all you want. And again, the same model, I can see them all here. I can edit, I can delete, and I can add a new funding source. Here we have personnel. It's a very light, the information you have to put in is very minimal. So it's first name, last name, and then what their role, their position is within your organization. And then we have waitlist. Waitlist is the one section in organization that you will be coming back to on a monthly basis. So the rest of these, we expect most of you will not be visiting so often. You'll set it all up at the beginning of the year or once a semester or something like that. But waitlist, you need to remember, it's under organization, and waitlist here is really a tool. City Council was very interested to see where there was unmet need. So we're using the term waitlist, but really what we're trying to do is indicate where there is unmet need. We are not asking you, every program we talked to when we did our focus groups and our testing, everyone had different systems. So you have an internal system of some sort, but what we're asking you to do here is on a monthly basis, come in. If you start an ESL class in July and someone came in, 5 people came in August, and that was the class that they were eligible for, that would be perfect for them, but there's no room in that class, then 5 would go in here in August to indicate that 5 people had a need and it was unmet. You can do it for every single service that you put in. You may not have, some of the services won't logically have a waiting list in that way, or that unmet need number, but you want to create a system somehow inside your agency where you are gathering that information. Again, at this point, there's no requirement to have a list of actual names, but you need to be able to explain how this number was arrived at. So you need some backup within your own organization. But that's the goal here, is that city council will be able to come in and see, oh my gosh, level 1 ESL, there's a lot of unmet need there. There's a lot of people coming in who can't get into the classes they need to get into or whatever. So this is very important and valuable and something that city council is very interested in, and I think could give us opportunities for additional funding if they're seeing a large area of unmet need. And that's it for organization. So now you're done. You can do that today at the beginning of your program before you even have students or services. The next section is services. So again, following the same model that we've seen, you'll have a list of all the services you've already entered. You can click and you can search in the search box. Once you have a lot of them, that will be easier. You can also change how many you see per page. To add a new one, again, we have these tabs across the top, and we actually have an additional set of tabs inside the main screen. So agency information is there. You're going to pick a service type. You're going to pick the fiscal year is there. You're going to write a little description of what the service is. We call it course here. It really is a service. So it may not be a course. It could be a workshop. It could be additional, a library club where people go to the library every month or something like that. So whatever the service is, you want to connect to the personnel. And again, if you don't see the personnel's name here, that means they probably weren't entered into organization. You need to go back and add them in there. Same with funding source. You won't see them if you don't see the in the list here. You go back to organization to add that. Begin and end date. These are the beginning and end dates of the service. How many students you expect to serve with this, and the number of sessions per month. If this is a regular class, and then investment. So very important at the bottom that you would choose one of the investments that you would put in, again, under organization. If this is a class, this all fits very easily. And then you have the ability up here to go in and put in the weekly meeting times as well. But if this is something that happens once a month, you may ignore this area and not use the weekly schedule at all. It may feel like it's hard to kind of stick that in here, like number of projected students. We're going to do one-on-one library visits once a month. How does that fit in here? So you could just put down, over the year, you expect to serve 20 students this way, and there's going to only be one session a month. And that's fine. You then would click save. And again, based on having all that required information in there, and you can see you get a little red warning if you haven't filled in all the required information. And I actually can't even get to the enrolled services or attendance until I've saved this. So I'm going to go back out to an existing one. So we're going to go into this ESL class. I'm going to click on edit. And now I can see the enrolled services and attendance tabs are active. So if I go to the enrolled services, I can enroll people into this service from this screen. And you'll see later, I can also go from the student screen to enroll them in a service. So it all depends, if you're enrolling 15 people into a service, it's probably easier to do it from this screen because I can just keep adding people in if they're in the system by clicking add new enrollment. If I have a new student and I'm going through their file and I want to update where they are, what they're enrolled in or whatever, then I might want to do it through the student screen. So enrolling people I can do from both places. Attendance I can only do from the service screen or the service section. Attendance is done by session for the month. So it's very probably much less exacting data than you may be required to use for other databases, and we hope that doesn't create a problem. We wanted to make this as easy as possible. So if that example of the library meeting once a month with one student, then it might be that there's going to be 20 students here, but each of them will only have one session in each of these months, and that's totally understood. So again, it's based on sessions, not hours, and it's by month, not week, not day. So it's the total number of sessions they attended in a month for that particular, for this particular service, and you do that for each of the students. You'll be able to see the student's attendance in the student section, but you won't be able to add it there. So only inside the service can you actually change the attendance numbers. So that's the basics of services. Students, similarly, same layout we've been seeing, tabs across the top. These are grayed out until I've actually saved all of this information. There's basic information. Again, if you don't see the funding source, you want to assign them to go back to your organization to add that. Again, these are all the items that we need to add, and they're all required. This is one place where the system will automatically populate the city council district based on the address that you put in and the borough that you select. If a city council district does not populate automatically, you're going to have to review the address and make sure that it's exact. I live in Queens. My house number has a dash between the house number digits. That's required. So don't if you find that someone lives in Queens and you don't put a dash in there and there's a dash in there, then you're going to need to come back and edit that. So if you're finding that you have a lot of students whose addresses are not automatically populating this city council district, you can contact us. But this is a database that we're using from that's not ours, and it just requires precision in the address that you're putting in. And again, that we thought this was a helpful tool that we assume most learners don't know their own city council districts, and you don't have to look them up. You just put in their address and it'll pop up in here. Active and inactive. So mentioned earlier when we were talking about the intake forms that you could have that if you wanted to use the one that you can enroll people in services or exit them. So exiting is per service. So Nell Eckersley is in your program. I am attending 3 different classes. I finish class A, but I'm still doing the 2 other classes at the same time. You can exit me from class A if some programs like to be very precise that way. That would just show that I'd finished that class, but I could still be in those other 2 classes and I would still show in all your reports. If someone has left your program, they've moved away, they're never coming back, they've had all the services they can have from you, you can change them from active to inactive, and that will take them, they will still be in your system, you're not deleting them, but it will mean that they're no longer counted in your reports, and they'll sort of disappear from some of the other screens in the services area. So active and inactive is in the total system. Exiting is only for the individual service. So I'm going to go back to our list of students and we'll go in and look at one of them so you can see what these other tabs do. So enrolled services, as I mentioned, I can enroll them from here. So this person, we can add a new enrollment. I can come here and select a service that I've created, so ESL class, and then the enrollment date has to be, cannot be before the start of the service. So back when we created the service, there was a service start date. That date is the first date that could be here. So I think sometimes it can be confusing for programs where you did a big intake, you've assigned people to their classes. So on Tuesday, you assigned me to class ESL beginner level. The class doesn't start till next Wednesday. You want to put in the enrollment date that you enrolled me, even though that's not the first day of the class. You cannot do that. So you're going to have to just go with the first date of that class. That is the enrollment date. Earliest enrollment date you can have is the very first date that the service exists. And then we have attendance. As I mentioned, you cannot add anything here, but you can come in and see what their attendance is for each month. This is where you can put in test scores. We currently only take TABE and Best Plus in here. And you would do that by adding a new test score and choosing whether it's a pre or post test. The score NRS level will automatically populate based on the score that you've created. And you can put in the date that the assessment was taken. If you're using additional assessments that are not TABE or Best Plus, that is fine, but you might want to put those in under outcomes. So if they're showing a gain based on another assessment, you could come in here and add that as an outcome. So that's how we're handling that right now. So there aren't additional assessments under test scores, but you can still have educational gain and outcomes based on your own assessment. So under reports are not so helpful, and we're not spending a lot of time on them with you until you all have some data in your systems. But there are a number of reports here, and they will come out once you click on the download report. They will download as an Excel spreadsheet. You can save it as a PDF if you prefer to have it as a PDF, but the file itself will be Excel. And you can combine Excel spreadsheets. That might be helpful if sometimes the reports that you want aren't here. You can think about how they could fit together. So we have student summary, service class summary. These will be helpful to run after a big enrollment maybe, or once at the very beginning of the year when you put in all your services. Outcomes, your city council profile, student detail report, services detail. So these are all reports you can see. We'll talk more about what city council will see. Again, city council will never see individual student information, but they will see numbers and be able to see numbers of people served from their districts. Achievements, we're still kind of working on this, but you'll see that you can add an achievement. So you can decide if it's a student achievement or a program achievement. Depending on which of those, you'll get slightly different buckets to fill in. There's a title for it, a description, which is your long, whatever your description of the outcome or the achievement is. If this is for a student, be aware that while it currently is behind a user account to log in to see this, City Council is interested in being able to share information with the world. And one thing that we think they might be interested in sharing are these achievements. So if you have students who do not want to have their information publicly available, you either want to protect their information here by making them anonymous or not having their name or their faces shown, but talk about them anyway and have photos of what they actually produced or whatever. But I would just recommend to be cautious that you're not endangering people or putting people in jeopardy that they don't want to be part of. So again, all the data in the system is online, but it's very protected by the user account. This is one area that we know City Council might be interested in sharing with the world to show the amazing work you're doing. So only put things in here that you are willing for the world to see. You can add up to 3 photos. You can add links depending, it could be a YouTube link or it could be a link to materials or something else. So again, these can be for your whole agency or for an individual person. All right, well, that is all of NYC RISE. As we said earlier, there is a whole folder of support materials that you'll have access to, and you have support from me as well as from our program staff, Sierra and Uma. So you can follow up with us if you have questions. Thank you for watching.